Be switched on. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regulatory section of the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee. Audio recording is being used to assist in preparing the formal minutes. Therefore, anyone participating in the meeting consents to it being recorded and being live streamed on YouTube. Apologies, first of all. I have an apology from Councillor Paul Duffy. Any other apologies? Okay, thank you. Online we have Councillor Sarah Duffy and Councillor Scott Armstrong at this point in time. Can I move on to agenda item 2, declarations of interest? Can I request that declarations of interest be taken as the meeting progress? And at the outset, can I say this is my first planning meeting as chair of this committee, so I hope you will bear with me until I find my feet going forward. Thank you. Agenda item 3 is a report from the Director of Regulatory Services, Facilities and Assets. It's an item for information, and it's the business plan for the year 2025-26 and end year progress reports. I'm going to bring in the Director, Elizabeth Rainey, to present this item.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Members, in May 2025, the Directorate brought the 25-26 business plans to you for agreeing. 6 monthly progress reports were provided to you halfway through the year in November, and the purpose of this information item today is to provide the annual progress report of the agreed business plans for regulatory services, facilities and assets, as in building control and the planning department. Members, you will note in the appendices to the paper that the reports set out in terms of progress, the performance measures within green, amber and red, and the report also sets out significant achievements during 25-26. Members, the detail are contained in the plan in front of you, and happy to take any questions on that update. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I don't see anyone indicating in relation to questions, so in that case we're going to move on to agenda item 4. There are 2 items for information. I'm going to bring in Robbie McNaughter, Head of Planning, to present both of these items.
Thank you, Chair. Just taking these both together, really, you'll see the third quarter statistics for 25-26 against statutory targets. The enforcement target was achieved, but fell short on the local developments and major developments, but a sort of middling performance compared to other councils. And then just on the planning caseloads, you'll see a continued downward trend on that, levelling off slightly, but continuing to fall. Happy to take any questions on that.
Thank you, Robbie. I don't see any indication of questions. So on that basis, we'll move on to agenda item 5, which is the report from the Head of Building Control. There's one item for decision, and I'm going to bring in Tom Lavery, Head of Building Control, to present this item. Tom.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Members, item 5.1 is a request for the naming of a housing development consisting of 19 dwellings individually accessed off the Umgulla Road in Armagh. The applicant's preferred name for the development is Old Mill View, and this name is selected because of the site is located on an elevated site fronting Umgulla Road, with the dwellings overlooking the derelict mill to the rear and the west of the development. Normally, it is noted that each property has its own access onto the Umgulla Road. Ours, they have their own access onto the Umgulla Road. Normally, they would be addressed off that road. However, officers agreed that it would be appropriate on this occasion to allocate a development name to these 19 dwellings to avoid confusion of addresses along this road, as the numbers would likely to involve A's and B's and C's, etc., because there's unavailability of numbers along there. So officers have assessed and deemed that the proposals are compliant with the Council's policy, and the recommendation for members is to consider approving the name Old Mill View for this development. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
I'm going to bring in Councillor Peter Lavery at this point.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Tom. Yes, I'm content with that approach. The only query I would have would we be able to ask the developer to make sure that this block of houses is well signposted if it's different from the road, because people may get confused if they're going from a certain number of on Gula Road to a different number, you know, and suddenly the numbers are changing when they come past these houses, although they'll obviously have their own unique look to them. But I think it would be appropriate if we could ask the developer when they're constructing these houses to make sure on either side of that stretch of road it's well signposted that this stretch of houses is now Old Mill View. So if that caveat could be passed on to the developer, I'm happy to propose.
Okay, before I bring Tom back, I'll bring in Councillor Fergal Donnelly.
Just like to second the proposal.
Okay, thank you. Tom, bring you back.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, Peter, to Councillor Lavery, yes, we're happy to do that, and we acknowledge your comments on that. It would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you for that. So it's proposed, seconded, and agreed. Thank you. We have 2 items for information. Tom's going to take us through both of these then, please.
Keeps going red. Thank you, Chair. By way of background, in the period February to April of 2026, Council received 3 applications from various applicants for dual language street signage in respect of 3 different streets in the borough. As per the Council's adopted street naming and numbering policy, the application comprised of 2 stages as set out in the body of the report. The applicants are currently at stage 1 in the application process, and as previously stated, the applications were received by the Council between February and April. They were accompanied by signed petitions before to represent occupiers of premises on the street for which the application is made. As provided under the policy, these petitions were verified against the electoral register in the office. All 3 applications have met the requisite threshold under the policy, i.e. the petitions represent not less than 1/3 of all the occupiers of premises on that street. Therefore, in accordance with Council policy, these 3 applications are valid and can proceed to stage 2 of the application process, at which the applications will be surveyed for the normal process. The applications cover a range of street sizes from 10 to 27 houses requiring to be surveyed. Thank you, Chair. This is for information, but I'm happy to take any questions members may have.
Okay, thank you, Tom. I see no questions coming up here, so on that basis, we'll move forward then. Agenda item 6 is correspondence, and I haven't been made aware of any, so we move on then to the confidential report. Can I seek a proposer and seconder that the meeting move into committee? Proposed by Councillor Kyle Murter, seconded by Councillor Peter Lavery, and agreed. Thank you. Members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into a confidential session of Council. This means we will be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask ICT officers to please turn off the live feed and confirm with me when the confidential section of this meeting can proceed? Thank you. Agenda item 9, any other relevant business? I haven't been notified of anything. So that brings us to a short recess until the consideration of planning applications commences at 4 p.m. Thank you, members. Move now to agenda item 8, which is applications for planning permission to be considered. Good afternoon, members. Sorry, can we first of all check that the live feed's running? Yes, it is. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the planning section of the meeting of the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee. Audio recording is being used to assist in preparation of the formal minutes. Therefore, anyone participating in the meeting consents to it being recorded and being live streamed onto YouTube. Also, during the course of this section of the meeting, questions may be asked by councillors who are members of the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee of Planning Officers. Applicants for planning permission, objectors, or those speaking on their behalf. In doing so, councillors endeavour to ascertain the information which they feel is necessary to enable them to determine the application. However, members of the public should note that councillors will not reach a conclusion as to whether an application should be approved, refused or deferred until the debate on the application has concluded. We have 8 items for decision this afternoon, and the first application is number LAO8 2021-0955, and it's Jason Smith, and it's marked as a refusal. I'm going to ask Nicola Craney, the Senior Planning Officer, to present the report and the PowerPoint presentation. This is a returning application. As I have not been involved in this application, I will not be participating and will leave the committee. The Vice Chair, I think, is in the same position as myself. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As I have not been involved in this application, I will not be participating and will leave the meeting also.
There's a number of lights on here. I'm going to call in Councillor Peter Lavery.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as I was unable to attend the site visit, I'll be unable to make a decision on it as I was not there at every stage of the process.
Thank you. Councillor Chris McCartan.
I'm the same as you and Councillor O'Kane.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in the same vein, I wasn't able to attend the site visit. Thank you.
Councillor Kyle Moutray.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was not able to take part in the site visit, so I'll remove myself from the process.
Thank you. Alderman Paul Rankin.
Yes, thank you. I wasn't previously involved either. Thank you.
And at this point then I'm going to hand over to Elizabeth Rainey, the Director.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Members, that leaves the following members who were in attendance at the site visit and as such are able to participate in this application. Alderman Gordon Kennedy, Councillor Scott Armstrong, who's online, Councillor Fergal Donnelly and Councillor Kevin Savage. Members, in terms of a chair for consideration of this application, as per Standing Order 6 of the Council's Standing Orders, the chairperson of the committee, if present, must preside, or the vice chair of the committee. Both our chair and vice chair have made declarations and as such are not participating in this application. In the event that both are absent, the nominating officer of the political party, whose member is the chairperson of the committee, shall then nominate a member to preside as chair. However, our DUP representative on this committee, Councillor Armstrong, is attending remotely, and this prevents him from participating in this role, as he needs to be physically present to operate the discussion equipment in the chamber. Members, I am asking for your consideration that the former chair of this committee, Councillor Kevin Savage, chairs this particular application. And as such, when you have considered, if I could have a proposer and seconder, that you agree that Councillor Savage, Kevin Savage, takes up chair for this application. Alderman Kennedy, could I bring you in, please?
Happy to propose that our
Second that.
Yep, members, I'm going to bring in our Director Elizabeth Reid at this stage.
Okay, members, just to confirm, Councillor Savage has accepted that, and can I confirm with you that you're all agreed? Thank you. Over to you, Kevin.
Elizabeth, can I just check, Scott, you can hear me okay online? I'll bring in Scott.
Yes, I can hear you, Chair.
Okay, folks, so everybody's online for that. So at this stage, I'm going to bring in Nicola to present the report on the PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you, Chair. This application is seeking outline permission for a dwelling at a cluster, and further supporting information has been submitted on CTY6 personal circumstances. This was deferred in May 2025 for site visit and additional medical information to be considered under CTY6. There's a number of relevant reports attached. There was a main report and 2 addendums which considered the issue of focal points and PAC decisions in May 2025, a confidential report and a confidential addendum. And then in June 2026 for this meeting, there's a site visit and 3rd addendum and the 2nd confidential addendum, just to be clear about the details. In the submission then from the applicant and agent, there was a supporting statement provided by the agent. There's a supporting statement from Conor Fagan, BL, and there's an appeal decision for a site adjacent on Derrylee Road, medical information which was submitted, and a hardship statement which was submitted by the applicant, Jason Smith. In terms of the principle of development, the main planning policies are CTY1, CTY2A, CTY6 and CTY8 of PPS 21, which are all contained within and assessed within the planning reports. In terms of clustering, the proposal fails to demonstrate that it meets all of the criteria within CTY2A, specifically failing the criteria 2, 3 and 5. The issues were that the cluster did not appear as a visual entity in the landscape, that the proposal wasn't associated with a community or social building or a crossroads, and criteria 5, that it couldn't be absorbed then into an existing cluster through rounding off or consolidation. The personal circumstances, as it said, have been assessed separately in confidential reports. There were no objections from any of the consultees, NI Water, DFI Roads, Environmental Health, NIEA, Shared Environmental Services and NIE, and there's no third-party objections. The recommendation, officers have considered in full all of the details that have been provided, and the recommendation remains to refuse, and the 6 reasons for refusal originally set out in the first report remain unchanged. Officers would just say that personal circumstances must be exceptional, compelling and site-specific, and in this case we do not feel it meets the criteria for this. And I'll go through the PowerPoint presentation. I don't think it's changed from last May, so some of you may remember it, and you have been on site anyway. Next slide, please. So this is the site. It's just west of Mahray. Next slide, please. It's a site then just on the Derrylee Road. Next slide, please. That's the site location plan. Next slide, please. This is just to give an idea of our consideration of clustering and the agent's then submission on clustering, what they felt was a cluster. Next slide, please. This is the officer then analysis of the distances and the separation and the visual breaks there. Next slide, please. This is the view then from the road looking towards the site from the corner of Derryley Road and then the wee minor Derryley Road just off it. Next slide. This is then a view from the road looking towards the site. Next slide, please. A view then looking along Derryley Road. Next slide, please. This is a view of number 167, then immediately beside the site. Next slide, please. This is a view then towards, it's from the outside of number 166 towards the north, from the entrance of 167, sorry. A view then from 165 to the west and the former 163. Then this is just a view of the road. You can see number 165 and 163 just in the vegetation, and the site's just behind. Next slide, please. This is a view then from just in front of the entrance of number 165, then looking west. Next slide, please. This is a view northwest towards number 162, which is set back well off the road. Next slide. That concludes my presentation.
Nicola, many thanks for that. Members, at this stage, have we any questions in relation to what you've just heard? Members, I'm going to propose that we go into confidential to discuss some of the issues highlighted in the confidential element of the report. Could I have a seconder? Alderman Kennedy. Members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, exempt information, we will now be moving into a confidential session of the Council. This means that we will be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. So therefore, can I ask the ICT officers to please turn off the live feed and confirm with me when the confidential section of this meeting can proceed. Can we get the people back in and we'll get the live feed on? Okay, members, we're back in public session and we received some legal advice around the confidential reports relating to medical issues. So as we're back in public session, members, is there any further questions before we move on to the debate stage? If there's no further questions, members, we will move on to the debate stage. Okay, has any members any thoughts at this stage that wish to share with us in relation to this application? Is there any thoughts on it? Councillor Armstrong, I'll bring you in first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Do you have a couple of thoughts on it? During the site visit, I remember driving. I've never been down that part of the world. I remember driving towards it, and the only thing that stuck in my head was look out for a church hall. That is not a church hall anymore. I remember when I passed it, I knew I was in the right spot. And it brings to the point of which was described in the reports about a focal point. I think it was the applicant had stated about the Harlan Wolf Cranes, how that is a focal point in Belfast but has no real social interaction. When I was driving down that road, the only thing that really could stand out to me to know where I was going or where I was the basis of that old church building. And so that was something that I noticed on the site visit, that is, while it mightn't be an active church, it is something that is standing out in the countryside to know where you are. In relation to what we've spoke about there in confidential, about the hardship, I understand where they're coming from. It seems to be that there's a lot of need within this application, and I'm very careful of what I'm going to say about it, but I can understand why they would want to move here and or build here. So that's weighing up heavily in my mind about how this application could potentially help the family where it's situated. So I think if we're going to decision, I know what way I'll be going on it. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. And I just want to clarify, we discussed medical issues in confidential. It wasn't legal advice that we sought. So we've heard from Councillor Armstrong. This has been a very difficult application. We did go out on a site visit and we did compare it against the reasons for refusal. The officers have provided a rebuttal to the information provided by the applicants and the barrister and the planning agent in relation to it, and that is in the appendixes, and I've read through them quite extensively this last while. So you know this application has been very difficult, and to this stage I would be minded that the officers have got the correct decision in terms of the refusal reasons, and we also discussed issues in confidential around medical matters as well, and there was plenty of clarity provided by the officers in relation to that. So I think, members, we've had quite a bit of time on this over this last while. It has came back to committee several times and it's been deferred for further information to make sure that the correct decision is made. So I think we need to make a decision on this now, and there's 4 members who can take part on it. So I'm going to open the floor for proposals at this stage.
Thank you, Chair. I propose that we go against the planner's recommendation and give permission for this plan application. So propose that we go against the planner's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Have we got a seconder for Councillor Armstrong's proposal? Members, we don't have a seconder for Councillor Armstrong's proposal. Therefore, I will propose that we accept the officer's recommendation as outlined in the report. Is there a seconder for that?
Thank you, Chair. There is unfortunate circumstances here, and as Nicola had stated, that there was opportunity to further more information. Unfortunately, that hadn't come through in the time frame. So, with sort of reluctance, I'll second your proposal that we accept the officer's recommendation.
Alderman Candy, thank you very much. Okay, members. So, application number LA 08 2021 09550 has been proposed and seconded to accept the officer's recommendation. Are we agreed? Agreed. Okay, members, we will need to get the chair and the vice chair back in for the rest of the applications.
Okay, members, we're moving on then to application number 2 this afternoon, and that's Jim and Jennifer King. It's marked as a refusal. Can I bring in Trudy Chapman, Senior Planning Officer, to present the report and the PowerPoint presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair. Members, before I begin, can I draw your attention to an error in the report? Page 5, under Principle of Development, the last line refers to the site being on unzoned land in Rich Hill. This is incorrect and should have been omitted. The application relates to the erection of a detached building to accommodate a domestic garage, art room, WC and first floor storage adjacent to 71A Darkley Road, and is before you this evening as it was called in by Councillor O'Hanlon. The application seeks approval to construct a detached building 24 metres south of number 71A, measuring 11.7 by 7.5 metres and a ridge height of 5.6 metres above finished floor level. This provides an internal floor space of approximately 132 square metres. Officers are of the opinion that the design and scale of the structure and its location in relation to the host property are such that it constitutes a self-contained unit of accommodation. The design is similar to a single dwelling, and therefore officers are of the opinion that the scale and design is not sympathetic to the built form or the appearance of the existing property. It is considered that the proposed building could viably function as a self-contained accommodation, with the design and layout lending itself to living accommodation on the ground floor, while storage on the upper floor could function as bedrooms. While personal circumstances have been submitted in relation to the need for such a structure, and these have been circulated to members in a confidential addendum, it has not been demonstrated that an extension to the existing dwelling is not practical, or that one of the existing outbuildings could not be converted to provide this function. Officers have taken into consider all other material considerations, including a letter of objection, and are of the opinion that the circumstances raised, while a material consideration, are not sufficient to outweigh the policy requirements in this instance, and on this basis a refusal is recommended for the reasons set out in the report. And I'll take you through the slides, please. So this is the location of the site within the general area, just outside Darkley. And this is our site location plan. This is an aerial photograph of the site within the wider area. And then this is an aerial photograph of the site itself. So this is taken from the bottom corner of the site, looking back up towards number 71A. And then this is taken along the frontage of where the building would be erected if permitted. This one's taken slightly further along and gives you some of the outbuildings. So we've got a building there that's used for housing of animals. You can just see a greenhouse, a polytunnel, and the little shed to the right-hand side seems to be for keeping chickens in. This is taken further up then and shows the entrance into 71A, and it's taken from the entrance to the house at the opposite side of the road, number 115. This is moving further up the driveway, and this is number 71A. As you can see, it's set in quite expansive grounds. So this is taken from the northern corner of the site. We've got a detached garage in behind the row of conifers, and then the photographs will move their way around the site. So this is taken looking back towards the house. This is showing the garden room. It's located to the opposite side of the house, so this would be between the house and the proposed structure. This is taken from another angle. And then this is taken from behind it, so you've got the corner of the garden room to the left, the polytunnel and the greenhouse. This is what's proposed. So as you can see, it's quite extensive and does look rather like a dwelling house. And this is the proposed layout. So it's removed from the house to the south of it. And that's us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that, Trudy. Move on then to any member questions. Bring in Councillor Kevin Savage.
Thank you very much, Chair, for bringing me in, and best wishes for the year in the Chair. Trudy, just in relation to it, it says this is for storage and things like that, but there seems to be a bathroom and facilities like that there, and I know they've given a reason for that as well in the report, but generally when you have storage and a garage, would you have facilities of that nature in them? Was that something that you just come across often? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. It wouldn't be unusual. This is WC, so it's just a toilet and a wash basin that's being proposed, and it wouldn't be that unusual, particularly in the countryside where there is a larger curtilage. We did ask why there was a need for structure of this size, and the information that we got back related solely to the art room. We weren't given any information in relation to the garage or the storage.
Come back again to Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair. From reading,
there was a mistake.
Trudy, from reading the report as well, was there any reason given for why an extension couldn't be attached to the main house dwelling, and it's removed from it? You know, for that type of facility, you shouldn't really be needing a separate building. Was there any rationale provided for that? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Savage, there's a section in the confidential addendum that was circulated that details that. We didn't get an awful lot of detail, and in officer's mind it didn't go far enough as to why one of the other buildings couldn't serve the same function. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other member questions? Councillor Alderman Gordon Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Just a statement there, Trudy, one of the objectors, or the objector had stated there was a garage had been converted into a bedroom at some stage. Is there any evidence to back that up?
Thank you, Chair. There wasn't anything obvious on site, but with that design of a dwelling, you may have had an attached garage at some stage, and under permitted development rights, you could potentially change that into extra bedrooms or living accommodation. So it wasn't something that had come through us as a planning application, and there was nothing obvious on site. It doesn't necessarily mean to say they've done anything wrong. So it wasn't something that we gave an awful lot of consideration to.
Okay, members, are there any other questions? Okay, in that case then we move to debate around the application. Any comments? Councillor Kevin Savage.
Thank you very much, Chair. From reading the report and reading and listening to Trudy's responses to the questions there, in my mind, I would be minded to accept the officer recommendation. It may have helped if somebody who was in support of the application had come along to maybe give us some further information about it, but based on what I've heard to date, I think the officer recommendation is correct. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I see no other lights on, so members, are we content then to move to a decision? Councillor Savage.
Chair, I propose that we accept the officer recommendation as outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kyle Moutray.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, happy to second that proposal by Councillor Savage that we adopt the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Okay, are we agreed in relation to that, members? Agreed. Okay, thank you. Okay, members, we move to the next application, which is LA 08 2025-0022F Gosford Rentals Limited. Yeah, we'll just take a second until everyone's in relation to this one. Okay, members, we'll move on with this application. At the outset, I want to bring in Roisin Hamill, the Principal Planning Officer, to present and report and do the PowerPoint presentation. Roisin.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks planning permission for a change of use from a dwelling to form a 5-person, 5-bedroom house of multiple occupancy and construction of a single-storey rear extension. The site is currently occupied by a 3-bedroom end-of-terrace 2-storey dwelling and is located within the development limit of Portadown, just outside the town centre boundary on Goban Street. Officers consider the relevant policy consideration is provided by the SPPS, which states the planning authorities should be guided by the principle that sustainable development should be permitted, having regard to the local development plan and other material considerations unless the proposed development will cause demonstrable harm to interests of acknowledged importance. Given the location of the application site adjacent to the town centre boundary in a mixed-use area which contains other residential properties, the proposed development will retain the building in residential use. There are no physical alterations proposed along the front elevation, and officers are satisfied there will be no adverse impact on the design of the host property, the character of the area, or the amenity of neighbouring properties. Officers in DFI Roads have considered the submitted parking analysis and additional supporting information, including the objections. A parking analysis was carried out over 2 days, and the findings demonstrated that a minimum of 12 parking spaces were available within 200 metres of the application site. Officers in consultation with DFI Roads are satisfied the proposed development will not prejudice road safety or significantly inconvenience the flow of traffic. The application was never notified and advertised in the local press, and 4 letters of objection have been received, and all of the matters raised have been addressed in the main section of the report. Officers are of the opinion that the proposed development complies with the area plan, the SPPS, and all other relevant planning policies. We've assessed the proposal against all other material considerations and are satisfied that any material harm the development would otherwise give rise to can be offset by the conditions attached. So on this basis, and subject to the conditions, it is recommended that planning permission be granted. I'll just take you through the slides. So the red arrow shows you where we are in terms of the proximity to the town centre of Portadown. This is an aerial view of the proposed site, so you'll see, as it described, is an end of a terrace of 4 properties at the bottom end of Goban Street. And that's the site location plan. You can just see the application site outlined in red. So these are the existing elevations. You'll see the property to the front with an enclosed yard to the rear. And the proposal involves an extension to the existing dwelling to allow for an additional 2 bedrooms at ground floor level. So that's a flat roofed extension out the back you can see within the yard area. So this is the daylight assessment that was submitted with the application to demonstrate that the proposed extension will not have any greater impact on the daylight going into the adjacent property as the existing walls that surround the yard area at the back. So this is a photograph just looking straight onto the site, so you can see the actual property outlined in red there. This is the side, it's actually the side of the property, but this is the entrance into the property, so the sides around the property, or the sides around the side, or sorry, the doors around the side of the property. And this is a view just at the rear of the property, so this is where the extension, the flat roofed extension is going. And that's just looking down Goban Street, so our property is on to the right there. And this is looking in the opposite direction, looking back up towards Bridge Street, and our property's to the left. And that's just a view further back up Goban Street. Again, you can see the house down to the right-hand side. So there was a parking analysis done, and it was submitted. It was done in the evening time of the 30th of December, and then again in January, to demonstrate that there was available parking in the vicinity of the site. So I don't know if you can see the map, but the red dots indicate where those parking spaces were available. And the photographs support, obviously, the parking analysis that has been submitted. And those are just photographs showing the additional parking spaces that were shown on that map that were available in the evening time of 30th of December. And again, it was done on the 2nd of January in the evening time, and again, the red dots denote where there was parking available. And those photographs just demonstrate the parking that was available within the vicinity of the site. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you, members.
Okay, thank you for that, Roisin. Okay, at this point, can I welcome Alison Curran, who's here to make a representation and objection to the application. Alison, you're very welcome. You have 3 minutes to speak. At the end of 3 minutes, you'll be cut off automatically, so don't think it's being vengeful. The same applies to Jason. You're very welcome, Jason, afterwards as well. So, Alison, if you want to start your 3 minutes now.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. I'm objecting to the planning application specifically in relation to the change of use to an HMO. The proposal includes the construction of a single-storey rear extension which has already been built despite the proposal only being presented to committee today. The decisions in relation to HMOs in Portadown are being taken in isolation, case by case, with no strategic plan, policy or thresholds in place across the council area. HMOs are not factored into the Craigavon area plan, and the council policy has not been developed in light of the HMO Act. At the council meeting in Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon in April 2026, Councillor Moutray brought forward a notice of motion in relation to addressing the volume of HMOs in ABC, particularly in Portadown where there's a disproportionate high number. At the same meeting, Councillor Lavery reported his understanding was that there was a policy being developed in relation to HMOs. There was a proposed threshold of around 10% a street. There are 9 houses on Goban Street already, 1 HMO, so surely 2 HMOs and 9 houses constitutes over-provision and equates to 22% of the street. Councillor Savage highlighted that there were 54 HMOs across Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon, 38 in Portadown. There's a second proposal at committee today. If these 2 proposals go through, that raises to 40 HMOs in Portadown, which equates to 74% of the HMOs in the second largest council in Northern Ireland sitting within one town. What is the threshold for HMOs in Portadown? And surely it has been reached. I believe this proposal should be considered alongside all the other HMOs in Portadown. The parking survey was carried out when 3 properties were vacant and during a holiday period. As well, I would query what arrangements are in place in relation to the proposed management of the HMO to ensure there are only 5 tenants living in the policy. I respectfully request that the committee decline the proposal in relation to the property. The HMO Act in Northern Ireland 2016 provides councils with statutory over-provision tests requiring regard to be given to the number of HMOs already in a locality when considering applications.
Okay, thank you for that. And we move on then now to Jason Martin to make your presentation. Jason. Okay. Just 1 second, Jason, till the clock comes on. Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you everybody for allowing me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicant on this application. We do agree with the case officer's recommendation on this application for approval. I know that HMOs are a very contentious thing in Northern Ireland at the moment, and I can say that ABC Council have been very stringent in terms of the looking at this application and making sure that it does meet thresholds of not changing the character of an area too much. Like I say, we agree with the case officer's recommendation, and really I am here to answer any questions any councillors may have on behalf of the application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. At this point then, we open it to any questions, members. Councillor Kyle Moutry first.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, okay, it was actually alluded to there by the objector, I think Alison is your name. Yes, I just wanted to get confirmation because initially upon looking at this application, that was my first initial question, just confirmation as to how many houses are actually on Goban Street. I do have some local knowledge of that area of Bridge Street, but I'm just obviously aware that there is 1 HMO there. If we could just get confirmation as to how many houses there are in totality.
Okay, Alison, do you want to come back in on that? Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. Can I bring Roisin in relation to that, please?
Thank you, Chair. I think there's 9 altogether, one of which is as an approval as a HMO.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Scott Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. And just on the outset, I want to wish you all the best for the upcoming year. As a former chair of the committee, I know it's difficult to be in that chair, but if you listen to the people either side of you, you'll do all right. Just a question for Roisin. What is the distance between the existing HMO on Goban Street and what is the distance to this proposed HMO? Thank you.
It's literally just across the road on the opposite side of the street. It's up diagonal up, 2 or 3 up. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to bring Councillor Scott Armstrong in again.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Roisin, for that answer. Just my understanding is we have had discussions around HMOs before around clustering, and we're making sure that we don't have too many in one area. And I remember we had conversations and workshops around this, that we would have, you know, a minimum or a maximum amount of HMOs in an area. Would this not be considered as a clustering of a HMO, considering there's 9 houses on the street, and this will be the second one within a short distance? Thank you.
I'll bring you in again, Roisin.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, there is no threshold at this moment in time in terms of planning policy. So the planning policy we're working to is the SPPS, which talks about demonstrable harm. And when we look at demonstrable harm, the things we look at are the character of the area, impact on amenity, impact on parking. So you'll see in the report, we've obviously tried to assess each of those the whole way through the report, while taking into account that there is another HMO in the area. And yes, it is in close proximity, but there is no policy that says that's unacceptable. It comes down to the assessment of demonstrable harm.
Thank you for that. The next speaker is Councillor Peter Lavery.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Roisin, Alison and Jason for your contributions thus far. I suppose just have a query. It was sort of touched on. We are working on a HMO policy which will have certain thresholds and certain criteria. That is now in our draft plan strategy for the local development plan, which should be published for consultation, I think, later this year in maybe August time, August, September. So where do we stand legally if we've currently got a drafted policy for some of this kind of consideration going on? Are we able to take that into account, or do we just have to go with what we have at the minute? Maybe it's a legal question or one for planners. Thank you.
Okay, members, in relation to this question, we're going to have to go into confidential business, so we are. So, can I have a proposer and a second? A proposal by Councillor Lavery, seconded by Councillor Flaherty, and agree that we go into confidential business to deal with this. Ask Anne McGowan to come in and speak on this. we resume then in public session. Are there any more questions that members want to ask Councillor Fergal Donnelly?
Photograph 3, do you know when that photograph was taken?
Okay, I'll bring Roisin in on that, please.
Sorry, can you just clarify which photograph it is?
Photograph 3, view to site rear.
View to the site from Goban Street? Look at the front? Okay, sorry. Sorry, 17th of February.
Okay, members, are there any other questions at this point? Councillor Donnelly again. Just hit your button. Got it now? Okay. Thank you.
No, it just seems to be in that photograph that the site, they're already building there. There's a few walls half up.
Roisin?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, they are building on site, but obviously they're building without prejudice, so that just because they're building doesn't automatically mean that they will get planning permission. Any work they carry out without planning permission is entirely at their own risk.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any other member questions? Councillor Flaherty?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to both that have attended today to put their speak forward. Can I just want to refer back to the parking analysis again, and something else that's in the report. It states five bedrooms for 5 tenants, but it also says there's 5 double bedrooms. You know, so that's not necessarily just going to be 5 cars. Can we can't stipulate that, surely, because that's nearly doubling the occupancy.
Roisin?
Thank you, Councillor Fahey, for your question. Well, the actual application stipulates 5 person, plus that's something that would be controlled by way of licence. So the licence will stipulate the number of people that will be allowed to stay in the HMO, and if they breach their licence, it could be taken off them. So that is something that would be controlled by way of licence.
Okay, Roisin, thank you for that clarification. Councillor Kyle Moutray?
Yes, Roisin, can I just ask, just for confirmation, I know the area there is a factory nearby, there's maybe a garage, something like that, so this would be defined as mixed use predominantly, would it? That's really it. And then also, can I just ask, are we considering this to be outside of the town centre boundary? If you could just clarify that.
Yes, thank you. I think, this is a mixed-use area. Obviously, there's a small pocket of residential just at the lower part of Govan Street and as you go on around Carrickblacker Avenue, but it is the wider area is mixed-use, yes. And your second question, it's outside the town centre, but it's right on the edge of the town centre, yeah. Outside.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, members, there being no further questions, now we move to the debate section in relation to this application. Or any comments around it? Councillor Moutray.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so look, obviously looking at this report, we have to apply the SPPS test, and I know that the officers have done that. That obviously states that development should not have an unacceptable adverse impact on residential amenity or the character of the area. my concern, based off the fact that this would now be the second HMO on a street that only has 9 dwellings, which would ultimately make up 22% of the street in its entirety. My concern would be that this would constitute an overconcentration of HMOs, and ultimately that would have a demonstrable harm on the character of the area and ultimately alter the character of the area. So that's where my concerns lie at the minute. So no, just want to state that for the record.
Okay, Councillor Peter Lavery.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, officers, for answering all the questions and all those legal questions. I suppose just tell you how I'm feeling on it. I suppose to talk some time about drafting up a HMO policy, and now, as of today, we do have a draft policy for consultation that this committee has decided on. We've been informed by the officers that there's a concern regarding adding weight to that draft policy because it has not been ratified by full council and has not gone through the full consultation process and so on. Yet as members who have been on this committee for a long time and engaged in all those workshops, when we've been advised that we need a policy, it's good to have a policy and so on. So it's hard to kind of set that knowledge aside. My own view on it would be that I can't ignore the decision we've made earlier, but understand we can't put any weight beside it. So my own view would be that to see whether or not this draft plan strategy is ratified by full council, and if it is, then I'd be prepared to set a portion of weight beside it at future planning committee matters and these decisions. So I'd be inclined to see whether or not this draft plan strategy is ratified by full council at the end of the month, rather than just off ourselves make a decision on it. I don't know whether that's possible, but my thought is of that nature. I don't think we can set aside knowledge that is in our head, and the knowledge inside our head regarding HMO policies is regarding thresholds, regarding sandwich and regarding adjacent dwellings and things like that. As an elected member, I think we have to take this, what we've been doing this past number of years, into account, but I know it's a tricky one, Chair. That's what I'm just thinking.
Thank you. At this point, I'll bring in Councillor Scott Armstrong.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I want to thank the objector Alison and the agent Jason for their contributions to the committee today. I'm sort of siding on raising the same concerns as Councillor Moutry has in relation to the possible harm that this could have, the demonstrable harm, sorry, should I say, to the character of the area. The objector made the point very clear that this could equate to nearly 20% of the houses on this street could be HMOs, and that can change the character of an area significantly. If 20% of your houses or the houses on that area would be an HMO, it would cause demonstrable harm. So that's where I'm leaning towards with Councillor Moutry on that. So that's my thoughts so far. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and I'll bring in Councillor Julie Flaherty.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and alluding, I'll not again repeat what I said during the legal aspect, but I'd like to sort of note that point too. I'm also of the same opinion here regarding the demonstration of harm to the area. I know that area, I know the surrounding area, and I know we're looking at that street with 9, but when you look at the character of the surroundings and the types of houses and the character of those houses, I think that has to be in my thought when it comes to this, and also given what I said earlier. So yes, I would be of the same, I would have that same concern.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers? I'm going to bring in Robbie McNaughter here.
Thank you, Chair. Just having heard those points, I think there's valid points raised in terms of the overconcentration and the demonstrable harm in terms of the character. I think that's a legitimate planning consideration of that. I think I would just urge a note of caution on Councillor Lavery's line of thinking that you are giving consideration and weight to the draft plan that's not yet reached consultation stage. So, in making up your own minds on the decision, be mindful that as you heard in the legal confidential session, wouldn't be a legitimate approach. You can look at the issues around the way that policy considers that. Those are legitimate planning tests, but giving actual weight to the wording of that draft policy just wouldn't see you through to a sound planning decision.
Okay, thank you, Robbie. I don't have any more lights on, so we'll move towards the decision in relation to this. Councillor Kyle.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think we've had a constructive debate on this application. Obviously, we've given due regards to all aspects of this. Obviously, at the minute, in the absence of a policy, of which has been mentioned in this committee many times previously, we have to apply the strategic planning policy and strategic planning policy statement. And ultimately, that does state that development should not have an unacceptable adverse impact on either residential amenity or the character of the area. And as I've said previously, my concern would be that the over-concentration of HMOs on this street and in this residential area, 22% of HMOs on the street, I think that's a compelling amount. That does give me concern, and I'm applying weight to that. Ultimately, my concern is that will alter the character of the area and cause demonstrable harm, so I would propose that we refuse the officer's recommendation.
Okay, moving on then to Councillor Scott Armstrong.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and I would like to second Councillor Moodrey's proposal. He's outlined it very eloquently why we would be proposing that, and I'm happy enough with that proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Julie Flaherty.
Yes, Chair. Thank you. Just to put on note, I support Councillor Moodrey and Councillor Armstrong in this. I am contented myself. I don't think I referred to said draft. My issue is with the demonstrable harm that I could foresee in that area. So I'm happy enough with that proposal to refuse. Thank you. Okay, members, are we all agreed to the recommendation or the proposal that's come forward? Agreed. Okay. Okay, thank you then, and thank you for the two representatives today for attending. Thank you. Okay, members, we're moving on then to application number 4 this afternoon, and that's from Adam Kurishi, and I'm going to ask Roisin Hamill to present the report and PowerPoint presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks planning permission for a change of use from a dwelling to a 6-bedroom house of multiple occupancy. The site is currently occupied by a 6-bedroom mid-terrace 3-storey dwelling and is located outside Portadown Town Centre on Tamdagee Road. Officers consider that the relevant policy consideration for the application is provided by the SPPS, which states the planning authority should be guided by the principle that sustainable development should be permitted, having regard to the local development plan and all other material considerations, unless the proposed development will cause demonstrable harm to interests of acknowledged importance. The application site lies approximately 460 metres south of the town centre boundary in a predominantly residential area. Given the proposed development will retain the building in residential use and there are no physical alterations to the exterior of the property, officers are satisfied there will be no adverse impact on the design of the building, the character of the area or the amenity of neighbouring properties. Officers in consultation with DFI Roads have given consideration to the level of on-street parking available as well as access to public transport. A parking analysis was carried out over 2 days and the findings demonstrate that a minimum of 10 parking spaces were available within 60 metres of the application site. The application was neighbour notified and advertised in the local press. 15 letters of objection and 2 letters of support have been received. The matters raised in the letter of objection have been addressed in the main section of the report. And on balance, officers are of the opinion the proposed development complies with the area plan, the SPPS and all other relevant planning policies. Officers have assessed the proposal against all other material considerations and are satisfied that any material harm the development would otherwise potentially give rise to can be offset by the conditions attached. And on this basis and subject to conditions, it is recommended the planning permission is granted.
Thank you, Roisin, for that. Okay, at this point, again, welcome. Sorry. Roisin, did you want to come back there?
I was just maybe going to take members through the slides.
Sorry.
Right.
You know I'm new at the job here.
Okay, so you can see obviously where the application site is. It's on the Tandragee Road, as I said, it's south of the town centre of Portadown. The red arrow just shows where it's located. And this is an aerial view of the proposed site. And this is the site location map with our application site outlined in red. So these are the floor plans and elevations of the proposal. So it's a 6-bedroom house existing, and the proposal is to change to a 6-bedroom HMO. So the property we're in is the middle property there, just of the 3 properties you can see in that photograph. And again, it's just the second to end property there, and that's a view just further down the Tandragee Road. And this is a view looking across the back of the site, so you can see there are rear returns and enclosed yards to the back of these properties. And again, it just shows the laneway to the back of the site, albeit our application site stops at the boundary wall. And this is another view showing the rear access into the rear of the application site. So this is a site looking up towards Portadown on the Tandragee Road, and our application site is in on the right-hand side. And again, there was a parking analysis submitted with the application, and the purple parking spaces show the available parking after 7 p.m. on the 16th of July. And these photographs again demonstrate the parking that was available at the time the parking analysis was carried out. And just showing 4 to 10 spaces available there. And then this was the parking analysis that was carried out after 7 p.m. on the 24th of July. And again, they're just the photographs showing the spaces that were available within a 2-minute walk of the site. Thank you, members.
Thank you for that, Roisin. And at this point, I want to make members aware that addendum reports have been circulated, and I'm going to bring in Jason Martin from JWM Planning. Again, Jason, you have 3 minutes to make representation in support of the application.
Thank you, committee, for allowing me to speak on this application as well. Like the previous one, I do agree with the case officer's recommendation on this to approve, and I'm here for any questions that you just may have.
Okay, thank you for that, Jason. Members will have seen that there are written representations as well in objection to the application, which were received from S. Wright and T. Newell. So we move now to any questions. Councillor Scott Armstrong.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Roisin, for the presentation, and thank you, Jason, for your contribution. Roisin, just a question in relation to the report there. It says there's 2 recent approvals on this road, 82 Tandragee Road and 27 Tandragee Road. Can you confirm the distance of those 2 applications compared to the one we're discussing today? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, number 82 Tandragee Road is on the opposite side of the road on the second terrace down, and it's probably about a 3-minute walk from the current application site. And then number 27 Tandragee is directly adjacent to the current application site.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring in Councillor Peter Lavery.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of questions. Looking at that relevant site history page, Council says 82 is down the road, but then there's currently a HMO operating on 23. But is that what the club that's going for a retrospective? So if there's a currently HMO on 23, and then there's HMO on 27, and it's for 25, I'm just not aware of that. So is this all on one side of the street, like 23, 25 here in the middle, and then 27? So if this is a previous like 3 in a row, just so I've got it right, because it wouldn't be too familiar.
Yes, Councillor Lavery, that's correct. So number 27 is directly adjacent to the site on the same side of the road. Number 23, we have a current CLUD application, which is still under consideration, but it is a registered HMO, so this would be in between the two of them.
Okay, thank you for that, Roisin. Are there any other member questions? Councillor Judy Flaherty.
Yeah, I do have a question. Thank you, Chair. And thanks, Roisin. It was alluded to before regarding the parking surveys, right? So, and it was confirmed that the photographs are taken after 7, which is when, I think what was the term used, that's when most residential want to park. Anyone that knows that Tandragee Road knows that both sides of that road are parked on footpaths and everything, morning, noon and night. Like I don't know if I don't even know if it's a criticism or what. I don't want it to be a criticism or anything, but I could not tell you when you would see that street with so few cars parked on it. So I'm finding that very difficult to balance, particularly as has already been said. We're now going to have 3 in a row, just at that particular juncture when you're coming out of Anna Bridge. Never mind when you get to that next corner, which is a bottleneck at this moment in time, absolute bottleneck. So these parking things and transport NI assessments, I'm getting very frustrated with, to be honest with you, because it is not reflective of what happens in these areas on a daily basis. So is there any way we can, is that a thing that's set in stone that it has to be done after 7 o'clock, I suppose, is my actual question.
Okay, Roisin.
My understanding is that's guidance on how parking analysis are carried out, and that's normal. What I would say is what officers have to balance against in this case is this is a 6-bedroom property. This could potentially hold 6 adults at the moment with cars, and we have to take that into account whenever we're making an assessment of parking. And look, I take the point you're making about the Tandragee Road being busy and being parked out, but not as part of this application, but as part of the previous application, I did actually visit the site out of hours, and there were parking spaces available. They might have been a bit further away, but there were parking spaces available. So it's not to say that we just take it, this is correct. We have actually carried out, we've had carried out visits outside of the hours so that we can check it ourselves. And in fact, whenever the day we did the site visit on the last one, there was parking available as well. But like I do take your point, it is a very busy road. But like I say, we have to balance all this up and take into account that at the end of the day, this is a 6-bedroom property that could house 6 adults at the minute as a family.
Councillor Kyle Moutray.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would come in agreement with Councillor Flaherty. It's obviously it's a very busy road. We've definitely established that, and that's my own experience. Is that often there's cars parked on pavements, and there's it's actually a complaint that's raised with me an awful lot that people struggle to actually walk on the footpath and push prams down it and all the rest of those types of things. So that is definitely a concern. Going back to previously when we looked at, I think it was 27 Tandragee Road, that was maybe a year or two ago. I recall as part of that parking survey, I think it was quite outdated, and they actually put in they evidenced the fact that there was a business park nearby. Is that included in this? Because I note that in the last very recently, maybe within the last few weeks or months, that business park's now actually fenced off. And I remember saying at the time, there's no certainty around that private parking as being there to evidence a parking survey. So I just wanted to know if that was included in that, because that's now obviously fenced off.
Okay, Roisin.
Yeah, thanks for your question. No, this parking analysis is relying on street parking on the Tandragee Road, and there are no double yellow lines, so it is available for people to park, but no, it doesn't include the business park.
Okay, Councillor Ian Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to concur with Councillor Flaherty and Councillor Moutray's comments in regards to parking. It's a road I travel daily at various times in and out to my work on William Street, and the parking is horrendous. And we could say, yes, there's parking available in other parts of the road, but human nature is you want your car parked outside your property. People will park in the most convenient spot for them, and I have actually seen vehicles sitting with cones in the front of them, to highlight that this vehicle's parked on the road, and obviously hopefully they'll not be hit. So I do personally have concerns regarding even the parking around this area. It is horrendous. At times, at school times, at people coming home from work on various times. Sometimes it can be you're weaving in and out of parked vehicles, and it's extremely dangerous. I've seen kids trying to cross the road there and nearly get hit. So it is an extremely busy stretch of the road. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Are there any other questions before we move to discussion? Councillor Moutray.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've already established that if this was approved, this would constitute 3 HMOs in a row, which I assume is highly irregular, probably not done anywhere else across the borough, and obviously that leads to concerns around over concentration. But just on that note, perhaps this requires legal advice, but we are obviously guided by the SPPS at the minute. Does that have any implications for clustering? Because again, I'm aware that our draft policy we've talked about previously does have specific mention to clustering, and it does make specific mention to 3 or more HMOs being in a row. So I don't know if that requires legal advice, but I would just like to know if we have any guidance, within the realms of SPPS or anything towards clustering.
Going to bring in Robbie McNaughter at this point.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Similar.
Oh, sorry, Robbie.
Similar to previous advice around this, it's a subjective test under the SPPS, so you've got to make up your own mind really what demonstrable harm is, and whether a clustering would cause demonstrable harm to the character of the area, and the weight you give that really. I'm not certain that it's established in other policies. To give you a steer on that, but you would have to put that into sort of a planning impact in terms of what sort of that cluster does to the character and why that's harmful, really.
Councillor Moutray again.
And then just aside from that, obviously Tandragee Road, I assume that's outside of the town centre boundary. There's an established character of the area that's predominantly residential family housing. Can I just simply ask in that vein, how many houses actually are on that section of the Tandragee Road? Do we know that? Again, because I just think that would be useful for looking into the argument around over concentration.
Yes, within the character area that we've identified, and we've sort of set out in the report where we've identified and why we've identified that area, and it's really to do with once you come under the Anna Bridge, the density of the area sort of lessens a bit. Houses are a bit more set back, the houses aren't as tight, and then once you get past, I think it's Annandale Place, it becomes slightly less dense again. So we've identified the area that we consider the assessment, the character assessment should be done, and in that area there's in the region of 100 and 110 residential buildings. Now some of these are buildings that may have already been changed into apartments and HMOs, and sometimes it's hard to look at those and actually see them, count them, because they don't immediately look obvious that they're apartments, but there is in the region of between 100 and 110 residential buildings.
Okay, thank you for that, Roisin. Move on to the second. Okay, there are no more comments in relation to debating this, I assume then, members, so we move towards decision. Councillor Scott Armstrong.
I just want to share my comments on this, Chair, if that's okay with you. I think it's already been said by Councillor Flaherty and Councillor Moutry and Councillor Wilson about the parking situation. I don't want to get into too much, but I use that road every morning and it is a bottleneck as is at the moment. And I think, Roisin, you'd mentioned that at the moment it's a 6-bedroom house, which means 6 adults could live in it, which would add 6 cars. But if this turned into HMO, you could possibly have more than 6 cars at it. If you have people staying over, you could have over 10 cars. In relation to sort of what we've talked about there and what questions Councillor Moutry had asked in around sort of character of the area, and I know, Roisin, you'd mentioned there's 110 houses or apartments or whatever you want to call it, residential properties that on that stretch of road, which you'd call the character area. When I'm looking at that from sort of the site maps and the maps from it, I'd be looking at it as a sort of more condensed in that space, especially those old, I wouldn't say that maybe Victorian houses, maybe about 10, 12 and then 10, 12 on the other side. And if we are going to have 3 sort of within direct in the middle of that, of those 3-story buildings, and then up another one, like you mentioned, was a 3-minute walk away. To me, that's looking like there's more HMOs there than what we would consider sort of as a normal in a less densely populated area. So I'd be looking at that as demonstrable harm to the character of the area, and that's my sort of outlook of it, and that's where I'd be heading towards in the decision this year. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kyle Moutry.
Thank you, Chair. Again, we've had a good constructive debate on this. I suppose what's weighing in my mind at the minute is I do just think it's highly irregular that you would have 3 HMOs next door to each other in a row, and I take on board that we don't have an adopted policy that would consider something like clustering. Obviously we've been calling for it for a long time, and it's taken a long time to be adopted, and we're still some time away from that. But my concern would be whether we have a policy or not. I do think that has the potential to undermine the balance of the community here. I think that this could be a material change to what is identified as predominantly a residential area made up of family homes. So that is weighing heavily on myself at the minute, so I just want to state that for the record.
Okay, members, are we ready to take a decision on this? And if so, can I have someone to propose in whichever way? Councillor Moutry.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, based off the previous comments, I do feel as though this will cause demonstrable harm to the character of the area. So on that basis, I am inclined to, yes, propose that we refuse the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Scott Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair, and I would like to second Councillor Moutree's proposal. Thank you.
Councillor Peter Lavery.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose all I've got in front of me there, I suppose my own view on it. We're looking at potentially 3 HMOs in a row, which, as others have said, it's just not appropriate. I think this is the first time this scenario has come to committee. But I think 3 HMOs in a row adjacent to each other is not appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, members, it's been proposed and seconded that this is a refusal. Are we agreed? Agreed. Okay. I'm going to bring Robbie McNaughter in at this point.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a point of clarification. If members could confirm that they're happy for us to bring draft reasons for refusal back to the next committee in July for those to be ratified with the precise wording that will go in those decisions.
Okay, members, content with that? Okay, thank you. Members, we move on then to application number 5 today, which is LA 08 2025-1424F from the Education Authority. I'm going to ask Ian Turkington, Senior Planner, to present and PowerPoint presentation, please, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. This planning application seeks full planning permission for the demolition of the existing primary school at Ivea Primary School, Refryland, and its replacement with a new 10-class school building together with PV panels, revised access and parking arrangements, landscaping and associated site works. The proposal also includes temporary classroom accommodation and temporary construction access to facilitate the phased development. This application is before members this evening as it's a major application. Officers assume members have read the report in full, and as such, this is a summary of the key issues only. The application site is located within the development limit of Refryland on unzoned white land and currently accommodates the existing primary school and nursery unit. In terms of the principal development, the proposal relates to the redevelopment of the established education use on the site with no increase in people numbers, staff or community uses. Officers are satisfied that the proposal complies with the Banbridge New and Mourne Area Plan and the SPPS. Regarding design, layout and landscaping, the proposal introduces a modern single-storey school building of appropriate scale and high-quality design, incorporating both hard and soft landscaping. Existing vegetation along site boundaries will be retained where possible. However, it's proposed to remove existing Leylandii hedges along the northern boundary and replace these with a mix of evergreen and deciduous planting. A detailed planting schedule has been submitted as part of the application. Officers consider that the development will integrate successfully with the surrounding townscape and will provide environmental and visual improvements to the site. Accordingly, officers raise no concerns in respect of design and are satisfied that the proposal complies with the SPPS, Living Places and Policy Days 2. In terms of construction phasing, members are advised that the redevelopment will be undertaken on a phased basis in order to allow the school to remain operational throughout the construction period. Temporary classroom and office accommodation will be provided to account for the partial demolition of the existing school buildings. Security fencing will be erected at various phases to ensure that construction and educational activities are always kept separate. Access for the primary school and nursery will remain unchanged via Castle Street, while all construction traffic will be directed via a temporary access through the Refryland Young Farmers Hall onto Downpatrick Street. DFI Roads was consulted and raised no objection to this approach. Officers are satisfied that the phased development will ensure a safe environment for staff and pupils during construction. In terms of amenity, the impacts of the development have been fully assessed, including noise, air quality, lighting and contamination. Environmental health was consulted and raised no objection, subject to conditions. Officers are satisfied that the proposal will not result in any unacceptable impact on neighbouring properties and it complies with the SPPS in respect of amenity. The site will be accessed via Castle Hill. DFI Roads was consulted and raised no objection to this. The proposal involves 42 car parking spaces, which exceeds the required standard of 26 spaces. along with appropriate drop-off and internal circulation arrangements. A 20-bay bicycle shelter is proposed, which is below the minimum standard based on the development of 29 spaces. Officers will control the provision of further cycle stands via a condition to bring it up to the standards. Officers are satisfied that the proposal complies with the SPPS and policies AMP 1, 2, 7, 8 and 9 of PPS 3. The proposal has also been assessed in respect of built heritage. The development is in proximity to 2 listed buildings located in proximity to the temporary construction access on Downpatrick Street. Historic Environment Division was consulted and raised no objection, subject to a condition requiring a detailed method statement to protect the listed building during construction works. Officers are satisfied the proposal complies with policy BH11 of PPS 6. In respect of natural heritage, SES and DERA was consulted and raised no objections. A habitats regulation assessment has been undertaken and the proposal will not adversely affect the integrity of any European site. Officers are satisfied this complies with PPS 2. In relation to flood risk and drainage, these matters are being considered by DFI Rivers, who have raised no objection. The site is not within a floodplain and appropriate drainage measures are proposed. Officers are satisfied it's compliant with PPS 15. The proposed school includes PV panels to the roof of the new building, and officers would agree that these are acceptable and will contribute to a sustainable development without any adverse impacts. NI Water have confirmed there's available capacity to accommodate the development, subject to standard conditions. Members are advised that land contamination has been considered as part of the application, which is supported by a range of technical studies. These identify some localised contamination associated with historic uses on the site, including former fuel storage and a tannery. Consultation with the regulation unit from DERA and Environmental Health have confirmed no objection subject to conditions. Officers are satisfied that this development can be carried out without any adverse impact on human health or the environment. Members are advised that there's no third-party representations received in relation to this application, and overall, officers consider the proposal complies with the local development plan, the SPPS and all other relevant planning policies. Accordingly, approval is recommended subject to the conditions as set out in the report. I'll take you briefly through the presentation now, please. This slide just shows the location of the existing school, as you can see there to the east of Refryland. And this is showing the red line boundary of the application. You can see the main site access is to the north and the temporary access there is to the west onto Downpatrick Street. This is just an aerial view showing you the footprint there of the existing school with the playing fields to the south. You can see there, just highlighted in red, this is where it is in relation to the Banbridge New Mourne area plan. It's on unzoned white land, as you can see from the red lines there. This is a site layout plan that's been provided. The parking and circulation is to the north, and the school footprint of the buildings we move further south, with the playground and open space provision moved to the northwest of the plan. This is a landscaping plan, so in this case the majority of the landscaping is being retained. There's some landscaping that's being removed, but it will all be replaced with appropriate planting. There's a phased approach to this development. So the phase 1 is the introduction of temporary classroom accommodation, which is the red blocks in that plan. This is just an example of what those temporary buildings would look like. Phase 2 will involve the demolition of part of the existing school, and as you can see there, security fencing is being erected by the purple line, showing that there will be no crossover between both sites. This part of the development is where the existing school is being demolished and the temporary construction access is opened up there onto Downpatrick Street, indicated by those arrows. This is phase 2B, where the existing school is constructed and demolition of the temporary buildings will be taking place. And then this is the final operational phase of the development. This is just a typical floor plan of the layout of the school and the 10 classrooms and other associated accommodation. This is just a typical elevations of the school, showing the materials and the design. As I said, it is quite a a modern design, but officers consider it integrates well into the environment. That's similar, just an idea of the materials and the design. These are some site sections through the site. Although Riff Ryland obviously is on quite a significant hill, this site is relatively flat. It does fall away quite significantly, so there's not actually that much change to the levels proposed in this application. This is an example of the proposed cycle stand within the application. Now it's just some of the site photographs. This is the existing school building with the sort of hard playground, as you can see there. That's from another angle, showing one of the two hard surface play areas in the current school. This is to the rear of the current school, and as you can see, some of those buildings would be of an age, where upgrades are required. This is an example of some temporary accommodation, which is also within the site of the school, which obviously will be removed when construction is complete. This is a view of the other playground and the main front elevation of the existing school. You can see here, this is the current sort of grassed area where the footprint of the proposed school will be located once complete. You can kind of see in the distance there, the fencing, that is where the temporary access will punch through onto down Patrick Street, and you can sort of see the Young Farmers Hall there in the background as well. This is the existing car park. Roughly speaking, the existing car park will be in the same rough area, but it'll be reconfigured with a new layout. This is an example of some of the boundary vegetation that currently exists. The majority of this will be retained, but where it can't be retained, there'll be replacement planting. This is the main site access from Castle Street into the development, which won't change. And again, that's the view into from Castle Hill into where the access is. And this is the proposed temporary access location on down Patrick Street on the main street in Riff Ryland. And that's the main barrier within the Young Farmers Hall, which will be temporarily removed and open up to facilitate the construction. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. Ian, we're open for questions, and the first one is for Councillor Peter Lavery.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ian, for presenting that planning application, and welcome. You're very welcome to committee. You've started off with a good one. The only query I have is just in terms of this drop-off zone, just to clarify, will the cars be allowed to go in and for the parents to drop off their children? Because I know some schools don't allow it, but there seems to be improvement with laybys and things like that compared to the existing setup. So could you just clarify that access will be allowed and parents would be able to drop off in those zones? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question, Councillor. Yes, the layout will allow for access for people to drive into the school, drop their kids off. There will be laybys proposed. There was some discussion during the process of the application of the reconfiguration of that, so we've made sure that children will not be coming out of the right-hand side of the car, it'll be the left-hand side, not onto the live road. And there's no crossover between cars within that development, so we consider it's a safe approach to that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions in relation to this application? If not, we can move forward to members' debate. Councillor Ian Wilson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ian, for your very detailed presentation. This is a good news story for the local community. This school is very badly needed. As you can see from the pictures of the existing premises, they are fairly old and needing upgrades. So certainly I would definitely be minded to approve this application for this. It's good news for the community. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would also be content to go with the officer's recommendation on this. You only have to look at some of those photos in the presentation to show that the current facilities are, to put it politely, looking quite tired and are needing a bit of a TLC. So this modern development, modern new school will hopefully be able to be constructed in the next few years and provide a lot of benefit there to the local community. And I didn't realise as well there was such a thing as a flat area of Raff Island. So hopefully the school will be able to make use of that for many generations of young people to come.
Councillor Kevin Savage.
Thank you, Chair, for bringing me in, and thanks to Ian for his very comprehensive report. And I suppose it's a real good news story for Rathfriland, but echo what Ian, Councillor Wilson and Councillor Lavery said in relation to the state of the current bill there. It's very much welcome, and I would be minded to accept the proposal as outlined in the report, Chair. Thank you.
And Councillor Flaherty.
Yes, Chair, thank you. And just to agree, I also was quite surprised that there's a flat area of Rathfriland. Knowing some of the people I know there, they would dispute that. But I think I have to just agree with her. It's such a good news story for the area. And there's one thing struck me actually in the report, if I may say. There was a picture, I think it was picture 6 or something, or wrote it down. I seen it. Picture 6, there's a wee skipping rope line on the street. And I thought that just said all it needed to say, that children are going to be bound to be delighted with themselves when they see what's coming ahead for them. This is great news for the children and families of Rathfriland.
Thank you, Councillor Flaherty. I take it we're all agreed then. Can I have a proposer, please? Proposed by Councillor Flaherty, seconded by Councillor Lavery, and agreed. Thank you. Councillor Ian Wilson, did you want to?
Sorry, Chair. Yes, I had my light on to come in to propose that we accept this application.
Okay. It's proposed, seconded and supported by everyone, I think. Okay, moving on then, members, to agenda item 6, which is application LAO8 2026-0224 S54. We're in Weir. I'm going to bring in Kyle Elder, Planning Manager, to present the report and PowerPoint presentation. Kyle.
Thanks, Chair. This plan application is a Section 54 application which seeks to remove Condition 21 of Plan Approval LAO8 2022-1173-0, which is granted outline plan permission for a site for residential development up to 53 units at Mullaphilly Road in Mullaphilly. The plan application is required to go before the Plan Committee as it's seeking to remove a condition of a major plan application, and it attracts more than 4 objections from separate postal addresses and is recommended for approval. Officers have taken that members have read the report and addendum in full, and as such is a synopsis only. Section 54 of the Plan Act Northern Ireland 2011 is a power that allows for an application to be made for plan permission for the development of land without complying with conditions subject to which a previous plan permission was granted. In considering an application made under Section 54, members must consider only the question of the conditions subject to which plan permission should be granted. Consequently, the scope of members is, in principle, more limited when dealing with a Section 54 application, though members are entitled to consider the circumstances that led to the previous original grant of plan permission. Condition 21 of the previous approval requires that no development takes place in site until details of the method of sewage disposal has been agreed in writing with the Council and thereafter implemented. The reason for the condition was to ensure protection to the aquatic environment and that capacity is available at the time of construction. The agent contends that Condition 21 fails the SPPS tests of necessity, relevance and reasonableness. They note that the method of sewage disposal and available capacity were fully resolved at the outline stage with the previous application, with NI Water confirming adequate capacity through a pre-development inquiry and a statutory consultation response, making further agreement of these details unnecessary. They contend that sewage disposal arrangements are properly regulated under the Water and Sewage Services Northern Ireland Order 2006, meaning the condition seeks to control matters outside the plan system and is therefore irrelevant. Finally, they consider the condition unreasonable as it duplicates issues already addressed, accepted and agreed by the statutory undertaker and the Council during the determination of the previous application. NI Water, the competent authority responsible for assessing wastewater infrastructure, and DAERA's water catchment unit have both considered this application and have raised no objection to the removal of condition 21. The previously approved application established that sufficient capacity exists at Tandragee Wastewater Treatment Works and that the development would not give rise to any unacceptable adverse effects. Officers are satisfied that condition 21 is not necessary and its removal is appropriate in this instance, and that the removal creates no conflict with the SPPS or policy requirements of policy NH1 and policy NH5 of PPS2. It's therefore recommended that condition 21 is removed. Members are advised that 5 letters of objection from 4 postal addresses have been received regarding the application, and these reasons for objection have been fully considered within the plan report. So overall, officers consider the proposal to comply with local development plan, the requirements of the SPPS and all other relevant planning policies, and on that basis approval is recommended for the reasons outlined in the report and the addendum, subject to the conditions suggested within the report. I'll just take you through the PowerPoint in this one. Okay, so the site's located within Mullaphilly, just to the northwest of Tandragee. This is a site location plan. So the site is accessed through Mullaphilly Green between numbers 5 and 16 Mullaphilly Green. It's just an aerial view of the site. So you can see it's currently agricultural land with housing to the north, east and southwest. This just shows the sites within the development limit of Laurelfield, Mullaphilly, and just close to the edge of the settlement. This is just a concept that was provided with the outline, so it's just for information purposes to show how housing development could be accommodated on the site, but obviously those details would be coming in a future reserved matters application. And then this is just the access arrangements between numbers 5 and 16 Mullaphilly Green. So this photograph then just shows the site entrance, so effectively the road will continue straight through the garden area and enters then the site. This is a view of the site facing northeast, so you can just see the sloping nature of the site. And then a view of the site facing southwest, a view of the site facing northwest, and then finally a view of the site facing southeast. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Kyle, we're open then for any questions, members. And can I also make you aware that addendum reports have been circulated as well? No appetite for questions in relation to this one. What about debate then, members? Councillor Kevin Savage.
Thank you, Chair. There was no questions because Kyle's report was quite comprehensive, so I think it answered it. Chair, just in relation to the debate, I think Kyle's outlined the rationale for it, and all the statutory agencies are content with it, so I would think we'd be happy enough with the proposal in the report, Chair. Thank you.
That a proposal, Councillor?
When you're Chair, I'll propose it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other comments or anyone to second? Councillor Kennedy, Alderman Kennedy. You're seconding it? You're seconding it, Alderman Kennedy? Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, are we agreed, members? Okay, thank you. Moving on then to agenda item 7, and that is LA08 2026-0329 S54 Hillmark Homes Limited. I'm going to bring Ian Turkington back again to present the report on the PowerPoint presentation. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. This planning application is a Section 54 application which seeks to vary condition number 22 of planning approval LA 08 2024 0644F, which granted permission for a residential development of 49 dwellings at Old Guildford Road, Tandragee. The application before members this evening as it relates to the variation of a condition attached to a major planning application. Officers assume members have read the report and addendum in full, and as such this is a synopsis only. Section 54 of the Planning Act allows for the application to be made for development without compliance with conditions attached to a previous permission. In considering such an application, members must consider only the question of the condition, and the scope is therefore more limited than a full planning application. Condition number 22 of the original approval requires that no dwelling is occupied until works along the Madden Road, including a lay-by and footpath, have been completed to serve the development. The application now seeks to vary this condition to allow a phased approach to the delivery of these works. Specifically, the amended condition would require the improvement works and primary site access on the Old Guildford Road, to be completed prior to the occupation of any dwelling. The delivery of the lay-by and footpath and bus lay-by serving Madden Road would be deferred until prior to the occupation of dwellings within the second phase of the development, namely sites 11 to 29. Members are advised that the development is proposed to be constructed in 2 phases, with phase 1 delivering 30 units and phase 2 delivering the remaining 19 units. The proposed variation aligns the delivery of infrastructure within these phases, and the phasing plan is included within the presentation. DFI Roads have been consulted on the proposed variation and raised no objection. They are satisfied that revised wording of the condition will ensure the necessary road improvements, including the footpath and bus lay-by on Madden Road, are delivered at an appropriate stage during the life cycle of the development. Officers have carefully considered the proposed variation and are satisfied that it continues to secure the provision of the necessary infrastructure at appropriate stages of the development, while allowing a more practical and flexible delivery of the scheme. The variation does not alter the nature or extent of the approved development and does not give rise to any conflict within the area plan, the SPPS or PPS3. Members are advised that 1 representation has been received, and this has been considered in the addendum report. Overall, officers consider that the proposed variation of condition number 22 complies with the LDP, the SPPS and other relevant planning policies. Accordingly, approval is recommended, subject to the conditions set out in the report. I'll just take you through the presentation now, please. You can see the red dot there. That's the location of the site within the settlement of Tandragee. The site outlined in red there as originally approved in the previous application. This is just an aerial view of the site. You can see the original application proposes to demolish the existing factory units there to the south and then construct houses on the green area to the north. You can see sort of the orange outline that shows where the site is situated in the Armagh area plan. This is the proposed phasing plan that was presented by the agent. So phase 1 will be that area to the south of the pink line, and all of those units will require the construction of the access and footpath onto the Old Guildford Road, which is to the south there. Phase 2 to the north, that is the bit of the development which will be deferred. The delivery of the works there, you can kind of see it on the next slide better, please. It's these 2 pieces of infrastructure here circled in yellow. The one on the right is a link to an existing footpath which will connect the proposed development but also the neighbouring development to the east there onto the Madden Road. And then to the west there, that's the bus lay-by, which will be delivered on Madden Road. This photo shows where the site access will be roughly on the Old Guildford Road. And the arrow there indicates roughly where the lay-by will be proposed on the Madden Road. This is just an image showing some of the works that have already been undertaken on the site. There's been some of the outbuildings around the main factory demolished. And again, that's showing sort of some of the works that have been undertaken so far, but the main factory remains. It was just some outbuildings demolished. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Open for member questions. And can I remind members that addendum reports have been circulated, and we also have in attendance remotely Grania Rice from GRA Planning Development Limited for clarification purposes only. At this point, I want to bring in Alderman Gordon Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. It's just an addendum there regarding the badgers. There was no photographic or video evidence forwarded to show there was badgers in evidence. The report there said all the outside bodies said that there was no evidence of badgers. So I was just wondering, was there any photographic or video evidence to prove that there had been?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. No, there was no photographic or visual video evidence presented to Council. But in any event, what we did was we undertook our own site inspection when the objection was received. We looked at the site on the 1st of June. We walked all the boundaries, and there was no evidence available to us that there were badger activity. So we also received confirmation from the ecologist appointed by the agent. They confirmed that through the previous reports of the other application and their work on site up to this point, they also hadn't encountered any evidence of badgers. So that's why we were satisfied there was no issue here.
Okay, any other questions? And if not, then we're open to members' debate around this application. Okay, in the case of no comments and no debate, then we're happy to move to a decision, I take it. Alderman Kennedy.
Offer to propose officer recommendation.
Thank you. Someone to second. Councillor Savage. Okay. Thank you. And are we agreed, members? Okay. Thank you for that. Moving on then to the last application this evening. I want to bring in Councillor Kyle Moutray.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just in reference to this last application, I have previously submitted a letter of support for Loughgall Football Club just in reference to their application for the Northern Ireland Football Fund. So just on that basis, I think it might be best to remove myself from this.
Okay, okay, fine. That's okay. On this last application, sorry then, it's LA08 2026 0090 F. I'm going to bring in Nicola Craney, Senior Planning Officer, to present the report and the PowerPoint presentation. And before I bring Nicola in, I'm going to bring Councillor Flaherty in.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have dealt with a number of issues regarding this particular application, plus I have a bit of a link to Loughgall Football Club with the chairman being a relative, so I think it's just better that I exit.
Thank you for that. Nicola Craney then, please.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks permission for the erection of a ball stop within Loughgall Country Park and Golf Course. The proposals being erected in order to stop golf balls from going beyond the perimeter of the golf course site into the surrounding area, which includes areas of open space, the football grounds and the residential properties. It's being presented to committee as the site is owned and managed by the council. Officers are of the opinion that the existing open space will be retained and enhanced through the erection of the ball stop netting, and the proposal is considered to comply with the provisions of Policy OS1 and OS3 in the corresponding paragraphs of the SPPS Edition 2 and is therefore acceptable in principle. The proposal is of a scale, design, layout and material finish appropriate for the character of the area and intended use for the development. Officers are satisfied that it will have an acceptable impact on the amenity of adjacent and adjoining neighbours. I'll just go through the PowerPoint presentation. So this is the map of the location of the site. As you can see, it's quite close to Loughgall Football Club and grounds and on the edge of the golf course. And this is an aerial view of the site. Next slide. And this is the site location plan. Next slide, please. site layout plan. This is an aerial of the site which was submitted with the application. Some of that vegetation has been removed already. I mean, it's an old aerial photograph, it's not up to date. The previous one that I showed earlier is more up to date, but this was submitted with the application. Next slide, please. This is the elevations of the ball stop. This is just a map of the country park area and just showing you the general location of the netting. Next slide, please. And this is just a view then towards the properties which abut this site. And next slide, please, which just looks then down towards the football club and the pitches. And that concludes my presentation. There's no vegetation to be removed as part of this proposal. It has been confirmed.
Okay, thank you for that, Nicola. Are there any member questions? Any discussion needed? Councillor Savage.
Chair, again, just like the previous one, it's a fairly straightforward application. I know it's been discussed before at council, and I think a lot of councillors have been involved in getting this over the line, so it's really welcome to see us eventually coming forward, and probably for the only reason that Councillor Paul Duffy plays golf there, so you know, with his swing, you know, it's probably a health and safety need as well, but it's a very welcome addition to the course out there, Chair, so I very much welcome it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ian Wilson.
I'm happy to second Councillor Savage's proposal. Thank you.
Okay, proposed, seconded, and are we agreed, members? We are. Okay, that's all of our business for this evening. Thank you for your patience and your attendance, and for those minded to, they still have time to get across to the fun run across in the South Lake Leisure here. Okay,